What is up, boys and girls? It's your pal right here, Black Avenger, aka the Black Azrael Lee Sanders. You are checking out a special edition, live at that, of the RCWR show coming at you right now for Thursday, June 12th, 2014. I just want to apologize to those of you that was watching our first stream. I just want to say this real quick. When we were doing this initial breaking news, my laptop that I'm on right now, wouldn't you know it, it had the damnedest luck. It actually had restarted, and it was doing some Windows updates, so I didn't even see the notification. I mean, maybe that was because I was just into what I was breaking down to you guys. I didn't notice it. I didn't even hear a notification sound or anything, so I do apologize to those of you that were probably waiting for me to resume that previous event, but the way it was looking when I tried to get back in there was just no way for me to get back in there and edit it, because I would have loved to just gone on ahead and just do that first stream, because it's going to be very hard. Well, I won't say it's going to be very hard, but you know, I had a nice flow going on that first stream, but it happens, man. All right, so look, breaking news today, as WWE has been cleaning house left and right. Now, I've been staying on top of this all day, and the way it's looking right now, as it's now kind of winding down into the evening, it's really looking as though that this is official. But what started off as maybe not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, not six, but seven WWE releases today actually turned out to be, in the end, so far, at least as of 3:50 p.m. Eastern on June 12th, 2014, there are 10 releases right now. I repeat, there are 10 WWE releases right now in one day. And look, you guys thought that what was going on with TNA Wrestling was something. What was that? Summer of last year. I'm going to be very curious to see if there's going to be a lot of people going, what the hell is going on with WWE over here? Because honestly, I think some of these names that were released by WWE today, it is kind of head-scratching. And it definitely kind of has me go, okay, what the fudge is going on over here? Look, let's go ahead, let's go right through these names, because there's a lot of names that we got to go through. All right, so first up, one of the first people that was released by WWE was Aksana. Now, this one definitely surprised the hell out of me. Aksana, beautiful, lovely, 32 years old. She came into the WWE through developmental back in 2009, was part of the third season of NXT before coming up the main WWE roster. You know, I looked at her and I just thought she was beautifully stunning, still is beautifully stunning. I thought this woman was definitely going to be going places in the WWE. I remember how when she was first teamed up with Teddy Long, because remember, Teddy Long was the SmackDown general manager, and it kind of seemed as though storyline-wise, these two had something intimate going on, but you know how it is, like maybe storyline-wise, is if you have somebody in a high-up position, as Teddy Long was in, messing around with a WWE wrestler, that's kind of like a conflict of interest, if you will. But I love how they kept flirting with the idea that Teddy Long was doing something with Aksana, and eventually we had saw Teddy Long come out of power with that whole John Laurinaitis storyline, and basically we had saw Teddy Long get out of a job, as Aksana then at that point had, I guess, hooked up with an old boyfriend, as we would first be introduced through Aksana to Antonio Cesaro. And this was back when Cesaro was trying to find an identity. Remember, one of his first original gimmicks was the whole Antonio's going to speak in 5 different languages. That's what he had going on, and Aksana was always setting it up for him. We saw that go down for several months. Shortly afterwards, Aksana would be broken up, or separated from Cesaro. It just kind of seemed like maybe for a brief moment there, WWE wasn't really sure what to do with her. Then we started seeing her in-ring competition, and I must admit, I thought of all the divas at that point to now, I thought that she was a good, well-rounded wrestler. I had no problem with her in the ring. I was actually always entertained by a lot of the stuff that she does. And, you know, we got to give credit to Caitlyn former WWE Divas champion, because she had did a shoot interview with RF Video, and she had put Aksana over big time. Like any time those two girls got together and they wanted to go over some really cool creative spots when they were wrestling one another, she was saying how Aksana was just one of those type of people. She's just crazy like that. She's just so spontaneous. She's willing to do anything just to put on a good match, anything for entertainment. So, it's so funny when I hear the release of Aksana, because we just saw this girl on Monday Night Raw involved post-match in a segment with Alicia Fox after she lost to Paige. And Alicia Fox is rubbing the popcorn and drinks all in her face and all that, and you're kind of left with the impression that maybe Aksana and Alicia Fox are going to be getting into some type of a feud or whatever, and to basically hear like 72 hours later, Aksana's been released by WWE. I think this is a bonehead move by WWE. I mean, I really was under the impression that if not maybe part of the second, third, or fourth season, I was really under the impression that maybe Aksana somewhere at some point was going to be part of a future season of Total Divas, because when you do your own research on her, you look up her background and everything, she's got a really interesting story that needs to be told, I feel. So it's really unfortunate that WWE operated the way that they did with her. I think this was a boneheaded move by WWE. Speaking of Teddy Long, that's another release that we need to talk about. Teddy Long was released by the WWE as well. Now, I know some of you veteran fans, you are probably going to be like, huh? Yes, especially when you think about the long history that Teddy Long has had in wrestling itself. I mean, this guy goes as far back as the National Wrestling Alliance. Let's not also forget that this man, he was actually part of Harlem Heat. Ray Stevens and young Booker T saw them go to the tag team championships and all that. I mean, he has a really long list of people that he's managed. So I don't want to bore you guys with that trip down memory lane. I mean, if you know your wrestling history, you know about Teddy Long. I don't need to rehash all of that. But what we can talk about is how he came into the WWE back in 1998. He started off as a referee, and then like around 2003, we saw him do the managing thing for a hot moment. And man, how about when he was managing Jazz? And I can't think of the other guy right now. Rodney Mack, that's who it was. Rodney Mack, when he was managing those two. It's just, you look at that, and then you see him eventually go to being a SmackDown general manager, and history was on his side in the end. Longest reigning SmackDown GM since WWE came up with the whole SmackDown and Raw GM concept. And, it seems like as time progressed, especially right around the John Laurinaitis Teddy Long feud, where I saw Teddy Long lose his job to John Laurinaitis, Teddy Long just kind of seemed like he was kind of in limbo right there. I remember there was one big major story, probably one last story arc that he was involved in, where we saw Booker T as the SmackDown GM, and we saw Eve Torres and Teddy trying to fight to be Booker T's assistant, and Eve Torres was kind of having that upper hand, at least until she got ready to roll out from the company. And then even after that, it kind of seemed like Teddy Long, okay, well, what's going on with Teddy? Eventually we see Vicky Guerrero come back to being the SmackDown GM, and then pretty much ever since then, haven't really seen anything of Teddy Long. If Teddy Long did make an appearance, I can't really recall it. I don't even recall if he did anything this calendar year. I want to say maybe we saw him make a spot sometime last year, but it's been so long since we've seen him on television weekly in a regular type of capacity. I honestly can't recall the last time he was on. Now, there's reports, and take this with a grain of salt, that maybe as far as his health goes, it's been a bit declining. I don't know if I would go as far as to say he's terminally ill, but put it to you this way, a lot of reports were being put out there that his health wasn't so good as far as him really being on the road like that with everybody else on a full-time or even on a part-time basis. So, I think as time progresses, we'll know a little bit more about the circumstances of Teddy Long's release and everything. But, I was really under the impression that
after they moved away from Teddy Long as SmackDown general manager, that maybe he was going to go back to being a manager, because in a time right now in the WWE where you see guys like Paul Heyman, you see guys like Zeb Coulter, you see Lana. You know, it's kind of like they're bringing back the I guess I can say sexy. No, not really when you think about Zeb Coulter. But then again, there's some people that like Zeb Coulter like that. But bringing back the sexy, I think, in managers, advocates, if you will. So how badass would it have been to see Teddy Long be the manager for maybe a Mark Henry or a Brodus Clay, you know what I'm saying? Or Ron the Truth Killings, or an Xavier Woods, you know, somebody young on the roster that could definitely benefit from all his wrestling knowledge, you know. Very unfortunate. I'm very baffled by this move that WWE had did, because I was really under the impression that Teddy Long was going to be a lifer in WWE for as long as he was there in the company. Definitely a shocking move right there. Speaking of Brodus Clay was another one that was released by WWE. You hear that name and you're like, huh? And this one, I'm conflicted. I'm not really sure how to feel about this release. I remember when he first made his debut, you had the disco ball going on. He was doing a little T-Rex dance. Kind of reminded me of that 80s songs. Everybody get up off the floor. Everybody walk the dinosaur. Don't ask me where the hell that came from, but Brodus Clay, and that's how the song linked up, folks. If you know your 80s music, you know what the hell I'm talking about. Otherwise, let's keep it moving along. But yeah, he came out. He had the disco ball going on. He had the Cameron, Naomi dancers, and seemed like he was connecting well with the younger WWE fans and everything. And it's so funny because I was actually at Kmart yesterday, and for the very first time, I saw a Brodus Clay action figure, and I was like, wow. You know, because normally when I go through the WWE section and I see, you know, what I usually go through the toy section with my girl, and I try to get an idea of what's current, you know, what's got the kids talking and everything. And I was like, oh, okay. Hey, there's a WWE section, and I saw a Brodus Clay figure. I was like, wow, you know, and it looked just like him. They did a really good job, and I just think that's kind of funny that I was looking at that and I liked that figure, and then here we are 24 hours later, Brodus Clay has been released by WWE. It's like, what are the odds of that? You know what I'm saying? When you really think about it. I really thought he was going to be able to go somewhere, especially when we saw he got paired up with Tenzai. It really seemed as though maybe this was going to be a tag team force to reckon with, but what happens? The WWE fans, they crapped all over this because Tenzai, they knew, was Prince Albert, the A-Train, all this other stuff, and they just would not accept the fact that this was a man that was repackaged, that spent a lot of time in Japan, got over very well in Japan, I might add, and they just would not accept the fact that he was this repackaged character, and they just crapped all over. It was so bad that eventually WWE had no choice but to acknowledge the fact that Tenzai was Albert, and then all of a sudden Tenzai loses the edge of seriousness and he becomes Sweet Tea. And I like where his career is now, as he's a commentator for NXT from time to time. Even though I haven't seen him in the past couple of weeks, I'm still hoping he's still part of the NXT panel, because I think he does a pretty good job. But, you know, just going back to Brodus Clay, it seems like after things kind of bombed in their face with the whole Tenzai thing, they decided, well, you know, Brodus Clay, let's see what happens if we make him a bad guy. And I always love telling this story because Brodus Clay has told it before. You know the Hall of Pain gimmick that went to Mark Henry? Brodus Clay came up with that. When he was in developmental trying to figure out ways he could be brought up to the main roster, because he kept getting word that they were going to bring him up soon, he pitched to them this Hall of Pain gimmick, and, you know, creative was like, well, that sounds pretty good, but we got this for you instead, so work with that. So the timing of him going the heel route, breaking up from Naomi, Cameron, Tenzai, I thought it was a very interesting one, because it's like, okay, so now we finally get to see what he can do as a bad guy, and I was actually under the impression that he was going to be going places, but instead we see him get pulled from main WWE programming. Several weeks go down the road, we see him pop up in NXT. He starts feuding against Adrian Neville for the NXT Championship, and one of the last times that we had saw him, he had he had put Adrian Neville over on NXT TV for the NXT Championship, and pretty much we haven't seen him since. Now, according to PW Insider, they're reporting that as far as Brodus Clay's release, the feeling is that once they broke him up from Tensai, creative just really couldn't figure out what to do with him properly, and so thus that warranted this inevitable release. So I'm very conflicted when I hear that, because the work that I saw him do on NXT, I really had got the impression that it was like a rebirth for him and his character, and I really just felt that it was a proving ground for him to not only say to the higher ups in WWE Creative that, hey, not only can I juggle being a badass heel, but you guys need to put me back on main WWE programming as a result, because you guys made a mistake. Look at what I'm able to do here at NXT, and it's just unfortunate that we didn't see this really take off, because I really was under the impression his career in NXT was really going to be blowing up. Put it to you this way, in closing, I thought that we were going to see at NXT TakeOver before Tyson Kidd versus Adrian Neville for the title. I was actually under the impression it was going to be Brodus Clay and Adrian Neville. And I just like how it was just pretty much these guys locked up, and then boom, Neville's on to his next opponent. A little bit conflicted when I hear about his release. Another release that I want to talk to you guys about, Curt Hawkins. Yes, Curt Hawkins was released by the WWE. Here's a man right here that has been in the WWE for a good minute now. If I'm not mistaken, he first came through the WWE like around maybe late 2005, 6. We saw him win the WWE Tag Team Championships with Zack Ryder a couple of times and everything. And, you know, when you really kind of think about the career of Curt Hawkins, what really comes out in your mind? And this is no knock to Curt Hawkins. What I've seen of him in the ring, I thought he pulled a very decent match. I didn't find myself ever bashing a Curt Hawkins match. Have no problem with him as an in-ring performer. But when you really think about his career in the WWE, pop quiz, can you think about 5 rivalries that he was in that really stood out from his WWE career? It's okay if you don't, because I can't. Can you think about at least 3? How about 2? How about 1? The only thing that you can really think about is, hey, he had paired up with Zack Ryder for a moment there. I mean, that's really what kind of jumps out at you the most. And, you know, I think with regards to Curt Hawkins, I just think he got a bad hand. I mean, well, let me back up a second. There is one major thing that kind of stands out to me when I think back on his career, aside from Zack Ryder. La Familia. La Familia definitely stands out to me because that was that stable that was going on where he had teamed up with Edge. Because I remember Edge had some type of mega heel stable that was going on at some point. I can't think of all the names. I know Vicky was part of it. Edge, of course. Curt Hawkins. I can't picture the other person that was part of it. For some reason, I want to say Michael McGillicuddy, but I don't think that'd be accurate. I'm really pulling teeth in my mind here. But it's really been kind of ice cold for Curt Hawkins' career in the WWE, to the point that some of you that's probably hearing that name, you're probably saying, what the hell, this guy was still with the WWE? What's going on? Yeah, he was still with the WWE. Now, he's actually made headlines earlier today because of some... he fired back at Mark Henry in a big, big way, and I want to tell you guys about that. This is what all had came about on social media, and I think Mark Henry's timing of this tweet, very poor. I would definitely have to say, and this is coming from a hardcore fan of Mark Henry. I've been following his career for a long time, since he's come up WWE, and I've always been a supporter of his. Every single time people have bitched about him being injured and why WWE doesn't release him, I've always tried to go to bat for him. But here on this day, I definitely would have to say that the tweet that Mark Henry put out here was wrong. And here's the tweet that Mark Henry had put out. Direct quote. Here we stand, 18 years in August, still here. Now just think about the fact that there was 10 releases in WWE today, and you put that out on social media. That's going to rub some of your former colleagues the wrong way, and Curt Hawkins was no exception to that rule. Here is what Curt Hawkins had to say. Direct quote. Your colleagues lose their jobs and you tweet that, you're an idiot, Mark. I definitely agree with him. Now, even if maybe Mark Henry was trying to maybe think of a way to kind of put some mega heat on him or whatever, and I'm not really kind of getting that impression because I think this was a case right here where maybe Mark Henry was kind of looking at the situation that was going on. In his defense, maybe he was trying to say to himself, man, all these names, and here I am. It's going to be 18 years in August. Man, I'm still blessed. Last we saw Mark Henry, he was floating around as a babyface. So unless Mark Henry is getting ready to come back as a heel, I can't justify this tweet that he put out. If he's getting ready to come back as a heel, I can understand. We'll know when he comes back for the gazillionth time, you know. But I think that this was a bad time to put that tweet out there. I'm totally with Curt Hawkins on that one. And Curt Hawkins would also say, my worst nightmare has come true. This is a good joke right here. I have to start paying my own wrist tape now. I have to start paying for my own wrist tape again. Shit, that's what he said. And he also put out an email talking about how you can book them and everything for shows and everything. So very shocked at that release. Let's talk about some other releases that had came about. We talked about Theater Along. We talked about Aksana. We talked about Brodus Clay. Camacho was another one that had got released. Yes, Camacho. Here's another one who you go as far back as to Florida Championship Wrestling. He had won the tag titles with C.J. Parker. He had came up with Hunico, and they were involved on the main SmackDown brand for a bit. They were tag teaming and everything. And then, you know, it just kind of seemed like after Hunico had became Sin Cara the first go-round, and you had that Sin Cara versus Sin Cara, and then Hunico got unmasked, and he pretty much had went officially the Hunico route. It kind of seemed like after that, Camacho just was pulled away from him. I actually did not know Camacho was still involved in the WWE until I had began checking out the NXT promotion earlier in the year, and off and on we had saw him in some feuds. One of the last feuds that he had going on NXT programming was Adrian Neville, which, by the way, he had actually lost to Adrian Neville at NXT TakeOver. So how about that? About like 3 weeks after that, Camacho gets released by the WWE. What can I say about Camacho? Decent performer in the ring. I really didn't have a problem with his in-ring performance, but I just really found myself not being able to connect with him as far as his persona goes and everything. That was probably my only gripe, was his character development. I just did not feel that connection right there to the point that I wanted to sit down and I wanted to watch his matches. You know what I'm saying? Instead, and I'm guilty of this, and I'm guilty as charged. Some of you may say, oh, that's crappy, Lee, that's bad, but I got to be honest, when I saw his matches, I couldn't help but want to fast forward. I just really was not that into it, unfortunately. Not to say that he's a bad wrestler, because I don't think he is. I just think it comes back to that character connection to the audience. If you don't have that to make up for the lack of great in-ring ability, then unfortunately you're not going to really last that long. I think those of us that have been fans of the sport of wrestling can definitely say, yeah, you know, you got to have there be some type of unison. You know, you got to be able to get over with that in-ring persona, and he just did not have that. So I'm not. That's really all I can say about Camacho. I don't really have any much more else to say about that. Yoshi Tatsu. Here's a guy, fan favorite, New Japan Pro Wrestling, came back to the WWE off and on, did some work in Florida Championship Wrestling, was part of the new ECW several years back. I'm not really sure what to feel about Yoshi Tatsu. Great in-ring performer. I'll definitely say that. Great in-ring performer, but that's about all I can say about that. This move doesn't really surprise me whatsoever. It really doesn't. I have nothing much more else to say about that, except for the fact that I think it's kind of unfortunate that in New Japan Pro Wrestling, I mean, this guy is like up there like that. I'm not saying he's like the Great Muta or whatever, but I just think it's kind of funny. It goes back to how some of these Japanese wrestlers come into the WWE and they have great praise from Japanese promotions that they worked in overseas, and it's just so funny how when they get ready to come over to WWE, they just aren't able to keep that thing that they had going over there in those respected territories over in WWE. I mean, we've seen examples like this not only with Yoshi, Jimmy Wang Yang. Who's another one that had came into the WWE? It's on the tip of my tongue right now. Funaki. Funaki's a hell of a damn wrestler too. Hell of a damn wrestler. Ultimo Dragon. I mean, we can talk like for 10 minutes about this, but you guys get the point. Yeah, I just think it's always interesting how we have foreign wrestlers that do good in overseas territories come to the WWE and they just aren't really able to make it. Very unfortunate. Other than Yoshi, Tatsu, other names that we need to bring up that were released. Jinder Mahal. Yes, Jinder Mahal. Hey, I thought this guy had got chance after 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 chance. And I just felt that WWE should have cut ties with him a long time ago, honestly. The only time I was ever interested in Jinder Mahal was when he was feuding, I'm trying to think, when he was feuding with Great Khali, I think it was, originally. I thought that was kind of interesting. He was kind of coming out and kind of talking to Great Khali like, why are you playing to these people? They haven't done anything for your career and all that other stuff. There was one other feud that he was involved in. This was all back when he was a serious wrestler too, by the way, before he did the whole 3MB gimmick. But what can I say about Jinder Mahal? He has gotten chance after chance after chance. They should have done this a long time ago. Here's a name that shocked the hell out of me. I thought that maybe he was going to be in for a mega push. Drew McIntyre, the chosen one, as Vince McMahon had dubbed him many years ago. I thought that this was like the new Randy Orton in the making. This guy has the height. He has the build. He definitely puts on an entertaining match. If you guys have not gotten a chance, well, you probably won't now because he's not in the WWE, but for those of you that had the pleasure of seeing him at a live WWE event, you can definitely back me up on this. When you see him in person, he is a tall and thick SOB. I mean, he really is like commanding the scene. I was amazed at how tall he was and how bulked he was when I saw him. The camera just does not do him justice. But here's a guy right here. I was really under the impression that at some point WWE was going to break him away from 3MB and he was going to go back to being a serious wrestler and all that. We kept hearing the rumblings that eventually that was going to happen, but it just seemed like it never came to fruition. And I always said, and you guys can back me up on this that's been checking this out for a long time, I always felt that Drew McIntyre got the short end of the stick. I always felt like he never really got the opportunity to really shine in World Wrestling Entertainment. I mean, he's been involved in some memorable feuds. The SmackDown brand where he was fighting to keep his job and he just kept coming up short. Teddy Long had fired him, but eventually John Laurinaitis, once he had became the overall GM for WWE Raw and SmackDown, he came on in, gave Drew McIntyre back his job and everything. I can't help but go back to that moment when he was hooked up with Taryn Terrell. Of course, we all know of the infamous incident. Taryn Terrell, she bitch smacked him and was beating on him. I don't know if it was at a WWE event or if it was at a public event. I can't remember the circumstances, but basically this was some real life stuff that was going on. Word had got back to certain people in WWE, and he was like the laughing stock in the WWE for a good minute. And you know what? Whatever was going to come about possibly for this serious push, I guess there were some people that weren't really too keen on hearing the fact that he got beat by a woman, or he allowed himself to get beat up by a woman, and pretty much since then his career has just been I don't really know how much of an impact that was, but I think the timing of it is kind of interesting considering he was on the rise, and then as soon as that incident had happened, because I remember very vividly when news had first broke out of that little spat that he had with Taryn Terrell, because they were dating at the time, and then all of a sudden his push just starts going lower and lower and lower. Honestly, I don't agree with this move that happened with Drew McIntyre. I mean, damn, they didn't even give this guy a chance to go compete on NXT. I mean, could you just imagine the rivalry that this guy would have had with Adrian Neville? I mean, somewhat similar styles to a certain extent. I mean, really unfortunate right there. That one I'm definitely a little not too cool with. Evan Bourne, this guy was nursing the injury for a good minute, and it's so funny because if I'm not mistaken, last week or 2 weeks ago, he was talking about how he was coming up on 6 years with the WWE, and fans had took to social media and were like, wait a minute. Evan Bourne, he's been released by WWE? What the hell? And Evan Bourne had to do damage control on social media and say, no, I haven't been released from the WWE. I'm just saying, I've got 6 years under my belt. I'm very blessed. I'm very fortunate. And I look forward to coming back to WWE. Now, here was a case right here where he had a really bad injury. I believe it was with his ankle, and he was out for like about maybe a year plus or whatever because his healing process was real slow. Turns out this guy has been 100% healed for several months now, and he's been waiting for creative to figure out something cool to give him and bring him on back to the main roster. Never really came to fruition. Rumblings were that supposedly if Tyson Kidd is going to be going back under the mask, maybe he would be paired up again with Evan Bourne, but given this release had came about, I'm not really sure what to say about Evan Bourne. Great performer in the ring. Every single time I watched him, especially his airborne move, always entertaining. Never a dull moment. He kind of reminded me just a little bit like Tyson Kidd almost. Now, some of you can look at that as a bad thing. Some of you can look at that as a good thing. You're left to your own choice right there. But that's another one that I'm kind of looking at and saying, okay, he really did not get a fair shot. I will give WWE a little bit of credit, though. At least they waited till this guy was 100% to the point that he's now able to go out there on the indie scene and take bookings and all that. He can definitely work off the break. So I will give WWE credit. At least they didn't operate too badly with him and basically kick him to the curb while he was injured. And then meanwhile, how's he supposed to support himself and his family? So I give WWE big credit for that. And one other name, referee Mark Harris. So once again, here's the names as of 4:20 p.m. Eastern for June 12, 2014 for WWE releases. Again, Drew McIntyre, Jinder Mahal, Aksana, Theodore Long, Curt Hawkins, Camacho, Brodus Clay, Evan Bourne, Yoshi Tatsu, referee Mark Harris. What a busy day it has been. I'm wondering how many shows, how many of my colleagues is going to be going in depth on these WWE releases, because I remember last year everybody was taking a big old fat crap on TNA Wrestling. Everybody was going, oh, it's so like confusing over there in TNA Wrestling. What the hell is going on? They're losing people left and right. All these releases are coming about. Here's WWE. They just said, okay, we're in the double digits today. Let's just get rid of all these people. So I'm very curious to see how it's going to be with some shows and some of my colleagues when they get ready to talk about all these releases that came about in WWE, and if they're actually going to go in depth about it as we went in depth about it here. I definitely want to see what you guys are talking about. So post those comments down below. Let me know what you guys have to say with regards to these releases, as I'm going to pull up some of the things that you all are saying right now. And if you're enjoying our recap and review so far, do me a favor, especially if it's your first time checking us out, hit that subscribe button so you never miss out. We do really great stuff for you guys here on a weekly basis, whether it's breaking news like what we're doing right now, giving you guys really great interviews, doing reviews for some of your favorite wrestling shows. We got a little bit of something for everybody, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, check us out, and you can share this a number of ways. You can Google Plus it, retweet it, Facebook it, one of the many ways you can spread the good word about our content. Speaking of interviews, I'm going to actually be chatting it up with Curt Hawkins, not Curt Hawkins, I don't know why I say Curt Hawkins. I'm going to be chatting it up with Luke Hawks later this evening. If you guys are very familiar with Luke Hawks, you have a question or two you'd like for me to ask him, you can actually go out of your way while we're doing this right now and post a comment down below or find us on Twitter at the RCWR Show, Facebook at Infinity One Productions. That's Infinity with an E and the actual number one, Infinity One Productions on Facebook. Send me your questions, and I'll definitely ask him. I'll be chatting it up with him later this evening. All right, let us see if we can get to you guys' comments here. First thing I'm going to do is check out what's going on Facebook and see if we have anything coming in right here. Good. Facebook is actually quiet right now. I love that. Good, good, good. All right, so let's now see what you guys are saying on YouTube here. And you got to bear with me because it's actually storming a little bit over here, so I might have a little bit of a delay. Let's see here. There we go. All right, we got your comments loading up, guys. One Man Mark, JTG, just got released. According to One Man Mark, and One Man Mark, thank you so much for that, buddy. I'm actually trying to confirm that right now. And if that is accurate, my friend, let us see right here. I'm actually trying to confirm it right now. I do not see that release right now. I do not see that release right now. Mark, if you have a link, give me a link. Because I don't see. Do you one better, buddy? I'll actually do a Google search right now. And let's see if we can find what you're talking about. Okay, I can kind of give Mark credit. It looks like former Crime Time tag team member JTG was released by WWE. Let's see if we can confirm this. Yes. Yes, JTG was released by WWE. He sent out a tweet right after he got the news. Direct quote, "Damn, why I pick up my phone," is what JTG had to say. And you know, it's so funny with JTG because there's actually been this, and I've been keeping track of it off and on past several months. There's actually been this clock. It's called the How Long Has JTG Been Employed by WWE? And it stopped counting down now because it just kept going on and on. It gave you like the years, days, hours, seconds that JTG was employed with the WWE, and the running gag was, what the hell does JTG have on Triple H? Because he's got something, because for some weird reason this guy was able to continue to have a job with the WWE, and we saw this guy barely be used in WWE. You know, and I mean, I thought he was a great wrestler. I honestly had enjoyed his work. I enjoyed him when he was in Crime Time. I was upset the first go around when WWE had released JTG and Shad Gassard of Crime Time. I was very like, what the hell? And I was happy when WWE had brought them back. And then several months later, they decided to split them up. Looked as though Shad was going to be a serious threat as a singles competitor. JTG, not really so much, but then Shad got released. JTG kept going, and then all of a sudden we like never saw him on main WWE programming again. To see JTG on WWE main programming was like Bigfoot doesn't really exist. It's like, oh my god, there's a JTG spotting. It was kind of like that. I mean, we didn't see this guy on main event. We hardly saw this guy on Superstars. We didn't even see him on NXT, and if we did, it was like a 3-second type of deal. So I'm like surprised that this didn't happen any sooner. But yeah, it looks like the How Long Has JTG Been Employed by WWE clock has finally ran out. So I don't really have anything to say about JTG, just except why didn't this release happen sooner. I'm very curious to hear his answer with regards to why does he feel he was employed by the WWE for such a long period of time without proper utilization. So to my colleagues that might be able to score an interview with him, you get him. Ask him that question. That's what I mean. The hard-hitting questions, man. Don't sugarcoat anything. You got the opportunity to chat it up with him. Chat it up with him and ask him those hard-hitting questions. UK, right. He did pair with Edge, talking about Curt Hawkins. Gotcha. And Jamie, wow, I can't believe all these releases. I wish the WWE would have kept Evan Bourne and Teddy Long, since they were very good people in the WWE, especially Teddy Long with his long stay with the company. But if WWE feels this will help things in the long run, we all have to support their decision. I wish them all the best in the future. So once again, we got, like, as of 4:28 p.m. Eastern right now on June 12, 2014, we have 11 releases. And one man Mark, thank you for that, buddy. 11 releases. So one more time, the names are as follows: JTG, Yoshi Tatsu, Evan Bourne, Brodus Clay, Camacho, Teddy Long, Curt Hawkins, Aksana, Jinder Mahal, Drew McIntyre. Any more releases that's going to be coming about between now and going into the weekend will definitely come on YouTube and break the news to you all if it piles up like it is right now. Otherwise, we'll definitely follow up on our next episode of the RCWR show, which will actually, our radio edition version, which is probably where we're going to cover all the releases at that point, will be on, let's see here, next episode will be on Tuesday night, June 17th. Again, Tuesday night, June 17th at 10 p.m. Eastern over at Blog Talk Radio. But please keep the conversation going about these WWE releases. I want to know if any of these names upset you, if you're shocked at some of the people that were released and why. Chime your thoughts on all the names that were released from WWE today, and we'll definitely follow up with you all next week. Read y'all's comments as we're live on the air for our radio edition of the RCWR show. One more time, if you enjoyed this piece, please go out of your way, give this piece a thumbs up. You can also leave the comments and retweet this, Facebook it, Google Plus it, one of the many ways you can spread the good word about our content. And if it's your first time checking us out, I'd love to have you subscribe to us so that you never miss out on all the great content we do for you here on YouTube on a weekly basis. We have episodes available on iTunes, Spreaker, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Blog Talk Radio. Just do yourself a favor and look us up in a Bing or Google search, type in the RCWR show, or check out the links in the About description below. That's going to do it, boys and girls. Thank you all so much for checking this piece out. Until next go round, I wish all y'all to be safe and be kind to one another. See you next go round, folks. Everybody, take care.